Alright, so it's time to answer some questions. And you guys had some pretty good ones. No desert island type questions or anything this time around. But I did get a kind of a long answer one by B Madness. But we'll get to that one at the end. Let's get going with these questions. Charles Burks asks, who's better, Puma or Snakebite? Okay, so personally, I like Puma way better. I think she has the better head sculpt. She's also a master of poisons, which is pretty sweet. So I like that. I also like that her story is very deep when it comes to just her background, because we get to hear about Slash. So when you read Slash's story, there's it just kind of increases her mythos. So I like Puma way better. But if we're talking on paper, it's gonna be Snakebite, because Snakebite is immune to poisons, and if that's one of Puma's main things, that's it takes away one of her skills or whatever. So I mean, who knows? Maybe Puma might know a way to get around her immunity or something. But on paper, it would be Snakebite. But personally, I like Puma way better. Duncan Bulk asks, what is your dream Lightning Collection Megazords? Mine are anything from Turbo and Time Force. So I feel like the Dino Megazord always gets a pass, because it's like the first Megazord in the US. But I've always loved the Dragon Zord in battle mode, which is where it's not the T-Rex or the Pterodactyl as the centerpiece, and it's just the Dragon Zord with the arms and the legs. So I've always really loved that one. So, and that kind of shows, that's the era that I come from. I come from the earlier stuff, so like Zeo and all that. Well, actually, I didn't watch Zeo, but Zeo was kind of where I just started to drop off. But when I'm looking at all the designs and all that, I've always loved that one. I don't think anything can top that design. I also think it hasn't been played out because you don't see it as often. But another one, if we're gonna talk about newer stuff, I do like Legendary Megazord and the whole pirate motif. I've always been a big fan of that. With that stuff, I mean, I was in the Navy, so of course pirates and all that stuff. So the Legendary Megazord is awesome. It's just this giant pirate robot. So those are the two that I really like. And of course Turbo, I like that one also. That one's a really good choice. Writer Origin asks, have you ever sold some parts of your collection only to buy them back later on? And yes, it was actually, so it was more like I just got rid of it. So before I did the Spider-Man with the stealth suit, the black costume Spider-Man from the more recent movie, I was looking for my homemade costume Spider-Man, and I could not find it. And it kind of hit me that I had donated him. So as much as I didn't like him, I realized that was a mistake, because I could have used them for this one and other Spider-Man releases for toys. So I went online and tried to find one. I didn't buy it, mainly because at this point now it's like $20, and that figure's not worth $20. That is highway robbery. So I almost did that, but my parents have donated a lot of our toys to the kids in Mexicali, and also they've sold stuff in yard sales or whatever. So now I'm trying to find, that's like my main thing, is looking for stuff that I used to have. So if I see that, I'm not saying that I'll pay any price for something like that. Like Exo Squad is really expensive, but those are things that I try looking for, and that's kind of like my main thing. It's, I'm gonna direct all my focus into that. If I remember, if I've just, oh hey, I used to have that, I'm just gonna focus on that. And then if I had to choose between two things, I would definitely choose something that I used to have over something newer. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. I haven't personally sold something and bought it again. That also almost happened with video games. So I accidentally took a bunch of games to sell at Luna Video Games, and one of them was Wizards and Warriors 2 or 3, and I guess I thought I had doubles of it. I sold it. I looked back in my collection and it wasn't there. So I went back to Luna and I almost bought it, but I saw it was a little much, so I didn't buy it again. But that was another case where I had sold something and I almost got it. Wayo asks, have you seen that Target line of 3 3/4 figures called Hero Force? They look a lot like the core. I was wondering if you're planning on reviewing them. So Hero Force, I believe it's Chap May, and I do have a few of the figures, and I don't like them. As neat as everything else looks, the figures are really cheaply made. They, 5 points of articulation, so arms, legs, head, and there's no name to these things. There's just no flavor to them. It's just, here's an army dude. I like to review, with the core, I like that they have stories now. And even when they don't have stories, they have these interesting names. With Hero Force, it's like there's no name. So it's just these random dudes. So I won't be reviewing those. I didn't like the figures. And they're expensive. I just found them just to make sure that they were the figures that I had. That I have like 1 or 2 of that just came in randomly in other stuff. Definitely not gonna do it. It's way too expensive. For example, the big plane, that thing is $50. And sure, you can get the Beast Bomber for 50 or 100 now, but the fact is that in retail is 25. So I think you're getting a better product, and you're just getting more attention to detail when it comes to the core, and they're being more fair with their prices than Hero Force, which is like no-name soldiers, but you have to pay double or triple the price for things. That's not right. So I won't be reviewing that. I mean, unless I somehow got a hold of one, then I'd go ahead and do it. Or maybe if it was on clearance and it's like, oh, that $50 jet or plane or whatever, yeah, now it's 25. 25, I would think about it. We're hitting down more to like 20 or 15, then I'm more likely to get that and then review that. So for now, I'm gonna say no, but maybe at a later time. B Madness 1, he asks, long-time viewer, first-time commenter, you have a very impressive and extensive toy collection, and you're very knowledgeable about each brand and toy lines you have. What got you into toy collecting? Also, are there any lines you want revamped, like a new version of Mask or Micro Machines? So, the reason I'm so knowledgeable about a lot of stuff is because I do my research. I know I actually just got a comment on the Green Ranger review where it's called the Sword of Darkness. I think I called it the Blade of Darkness. I don't remember, or the Sword of Evil. Sword of Evil. I think that's what I called it. That was really me just writing the review on the fly. But I try to, that's why I'm watching these shows if it's like a toy line that has a show, because it's like I want to get these things right. Of course, I'm going to slip up. I'm human, just like everyone else. But I try to do my research. For example, I got this Cuphead review that I want to do. I've never played Cuphead until I got that toy because I just bought the game. So I'm doing my research by playing the game, so I could tell you how the game is played and what it's about. And then I also, after that, I want to learn a little bit more. Maybe some little tidbits I can give you. So I'm always doing my research when it comes to my reviews. If I mess something up, chances are wherever I got the research, that was wrong, or I may have misremembered while I'm typing up the review. But yeah, that's that. As toy collecting goes, it's funny because first I started with video game collecting, and that was mainly because I was playing video games, and I've always kept my original NES, and I had half the games for that, well, my original games. And the other games, they went to Mexicali again. So we lost those games, and I wanted to get them back. So I've completed my old collection of NES games, and also Genesis games. So I have my original Genesis games. So it started with that, just collecting video games. And then I started building model kits. I don't remember how I got into from video games to model kits, but then I started building model kits while I was playing video games. And from there, I started getting more into like the anime kits, and I've had Gundam kits and stuff like that. So it went from model kits, and then I don't remember what I watched that was G.I. Joe related. And, I'm painting models, and I'm like, it'd be kind of cool to see some of these vehicles with all the details actually have the details painted. I thought that was a really cool idea, and I started thinking of other toys that had little details that weren't painted, like Muckman from the Turtles. So that was just one of those things where it's like, I kind of want to paint those things. I didn't realize I was going to be customizing them, but I was like, yeah, I'll do that. And I don't customize. So that's how I got interested in that, and I started collecting Joes. And then I always remembered how in the 90s, at least, it was a big deal to collect straight arm G.I. Joe. Like, that was like the big thing. Straight arm G.I. Joe, Mickey Mouse Cobra Commander. So those were the big things. And it's like, I think that's what I want to do. I want to get these straight arm G.I. Joes, get the first wave of the Joes, and then paint up the vehicles. And maybe even like if there's like a knife or something that's like in green. So I bought that, and that was fun. I completed a few things, and I decided, hey, I want to get the G.I. Joe stuff that I've always wanted, which is stuff from the NES game, which is, it's one of like my top 2 favorite video games. It's that one and Bionic Commando. Those are always switching between 1 and 2. So, that's kind of how I got into it. I got the Joes, and I was like, yeah, I want to customize these. And I didn't end up customizing anything, but I ended up just doing the same thing I did with the video game. So getting the stuff that I used to have, like Destro's Despoiler. That was actually one of the first ones. Because I used to have the Despoiler with the box, but I never had Destro. So I was like, well, it'd be kind of cool to see what Destro looks like. So I got the Despoiler, I got Destro, and that kind of kickstarted everything. Also the Bug, which is on the NES game. So yeah, just a lot of things. It was like a lot of cross interaction between video games, model kits, and the toys that I've always wanted. So that's kind of how I got started with toy collecting. So there you go. That's my history on that. So I hope these answers were questioned. I hope that I answered your questions. And yeah, we'll just see you on the next video.
Oh yeah, and then I forgot to answer the rest of B Madness's question. Do I want any toy line revamped? And I don't really think so. Anytime something gets revamped or whatever, it never comes out right. So I think if anything needs to be revamped, it's actually the new Turtles. Ever since the ones with the back that opens up, ever since those came out, the quality's just gone downhill. And then we've even received the bug busting Raphael, Leonardo, and Donatello, and they're all pretty cheaply made. So I almost feel like that line needs to be revamped, if you want to call it that. Like, we need to get some new sculpts on the heads, especially on the hands. But the articulation is great, but it's just they're just kind of going downhill with that. So that needs to be revamped. Anything from the 80s, I mean, we're getting He-Man, so that can't be revamped. I already said the Turtles. That's here, so as much as I wanted to get revamped, it's not really going to, because it's already there. Transformers is always coming out with a new version. So I can't really think of a toy line. When we had Robotech, I mean, that was cool. We only got 4 or 5 figures from that, but that's it. Like, we're not going to get any vehicles or anything like that. Nobody that is, no kids are into Robotech. So these things just keep getting released, but just for collectors, because the kids don't really care about these things. So, and then the toy company, I mean, it's toys. Toys are for kids. I know, like, I collect them. A lot of you guys collect them. But these are for kids first, and it's for them to buy, for their parents to buy up. Just like how it happened with us. So, it'd be a real shame if toys were just for adults, because then, those kids, they're not going to be growing up using their imagination and going on adventures. But yeah, to answer your question, I don't really know what I would want revamped, because Batman, okay, the Kenner Batman stuff, the Alien stuff, that's already coming out. I can't think of any toy line. I mean, okay, fine. I have to answer one, so we'll go with Silverhawks and Supernaturals. That would be kind of cool. Yeah, it's not going to be done right, but I mean, if we were to get vac metalized Silverhawks, that'd be something different. But it's not going to be vac metalized. It's going to be done with silver plastic. And when it comes to Supernaturals, those are going to be super expensive because of the holograms. So, and they don't really do holograms as much anymore. We don't see them very often. So, yeah, I mean, sorry to kind of be a downer on that answer, but that's just kind of the way I see it going. It's not really going to look right, but my answer would be Silverhawks done right and Supernaturals done right. So, yeah. All right, we'll see you in the next video.